I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Here.
Councilman Garrick.
Here.
Councilman Accomando.
Here.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Here.
Council President Simuluka.
Here, please rise to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting. Adequate notice of this meeting has been sent to all council members and to all legal newspapers in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, and in consideration of the Executive Order Number 103 issued by Governor Murphy on March 9, 2020, declaring a state of emergency and a public health emergency in the state of New Jersey.
The public is hereby advised that any statements made during the meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Saddlebrook may not be privileged or protected, and that persons or entities who take issue with such comments or are offended by same may have in the past or legal redress through the courts. Any member of the public who addresses the council speaks for themselves and not for the council.
I entertain a motion to open the meeting to the public.
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Dominion, second by Mr. Accomando. Roll call.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrick.
Yes.
Councilman Accomando.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President Simuluka.
Yes, meeting is now open to the public. Anyone wish to address the council, please come forward. State your name and address, and you'll have your time.
I'll go first. Bill Gould at 260 Hillside Avenue. I was just coming to check on, well, first of all, thank you for your correspondence. I noticed I got it, and I was wondering how we met out with the direction with the speed bumps or whatever on Hillside Avenue. We got an update on that, right?
Are you done talking?
Okay.
Yes, we have gone there, the committee has gone there, including the engineer, and I've made a recommendation to the mayor on behalf of the committee for various roads. And Hillside, we felt was, based on its width and the fact that it's a cut through, that it was something that met the criteria, so we intend to put a speed hump on Hillside, and it's at a location that we're going to rely more on the engineer to give us the best location for that speed hump.
Well, that's great, so it's a go then.
It's a go, and we would intend to do it this year. We know that we're going to put one on Wilson. That's going to be next year because we're going to repave Wilson. We don't want to do it. We didn't want to do it this year and then come back and tear it up when we did the new pavement. But Hillside, I think, is going to be the final speed hump for this year's road program.
That would be great if that
it should be
good job, by the way.
a couple months.
All right, that's a good job. And I would, if I could, and I would refer to our engineer, the possibility of, since it is a wide street and a long street, perhaps 2 speed bumps. And I don't know the logistics, right? That's why he's here. I don't know the logistics of it, but it would deter the Caldwell end of the district.
The fact that it's not that long of a street, but we talked about it, and I'll just ask you why you're here. Do you feel, we sent out, as you know, based on the concerns, we sent out a correspondence to everyone on Hillside, and we came back, and it was unlike Leslie, where we had a mixed bag. On Hillside, it was universal that they were looking for speed hump. So, if you were going to choose one, gun to your head, choose one, is the problem speeding or the problem the volume based on cut through? What would you say? I know it's probably a combination, but what would you say is, from your experience?
I would actually say speeding.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the volume is the volume. And I think last year, I don't know, I spoke with Peter about it, and we have a local traffic only sign. And we can't expect our law enforcement to be sitting on the street all day long. It's a cut through, right? But speeding, in particular now, I mean, I don't know what went on the other night. Something was going on. I don't know if it was a road race or what on Route 46. I don't know if anybody, you're on my end of town, I don't know if you heard it, right? But it was kind of crazy. But the street does get that way, in particular at rush hours. Who doesn't need late for work, right? Or need to get over wherever they work this way, you know, and they want to bypass Fifth Street. So speeding that's the number one.
Okay.
All right, and beyond that, I think if we do divert traffic there, it's a plus to the town, because people have to drive past our businesses. You know, otherwise they're on Morgan Street and they pass by. You know, so they might use businesses. But thank you very much
I
for
appreciate your
addressing
input.
as quickly as you did. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other members of the public want to come forward? Please state your name and address.
Fawad Malik, 270 Hillside Avenue. Just talking about the Hillside Avenue speed bumps. I would say two, only because one on Current, Hickey Terrace, and one on Current is two separate blocks, and people tend to speed up once they get past that. If we can, I think it's long enough. The other thing is speeding is a big problem, and I have 4 kids at home, so I'm kind of concerned. And a little 3-year-old. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other member of the public want to come forward? Please state your name and address.
Good afternoon, Richard Garcia, 593 Hickory Avenue, Satterbrook. Council President Saluka and council members. Just a couple questions. First of all, I just want to thank the responders, the first responders for this past Tuesday storm. I've been driving around, I walk around town a little bit, and I see that a lot of trees have been down, and the DPW out there cleaning stuff very quickly. So thank you to the municipal employees. If I can get some clarification on the assessments, the property assessments. I was here last month, and I was told the town is broken up into pieces, I guess. A quarter. Is that the way it works? Once every year, a quarter gets assessed.
Yeah, we had a townwide assessment, and then it's a rolling assessment. So a quarter of the town every year gets reassessed. So it was 1 year. We'll just pick a day, pick a year. 2015 was the whole town. In 2016, they went to one section, and then the 2017 another section. So it's rolling. So the whole town gets reevaluated as a whole every 4 years. So we're basically up to date, and we don't have anything falling down. Sometimes you don't have a reassessment for supposed to be, I think, 10 years, right. But sometimes it falls and it's 15 years. Right. So that the reason for that, the goal is to help us with tax appeals in the future.
Right. And the reason I bring that up is because my part of town, the Tree Streets area, we were assessed in 2018 for 2019. Okay. Last Friday, or 2 Fridays ago, the 24th of July, I think it was, a gentleman was walking through our town, my neighborhood. I forget the name of the company, but it is an appraisal company that was hired by the township, and he said he was there to reassess our property. Okay. So that's right now in 2020. So if we were assessed in 2018, right? We're being reassessed again now in 2020. Is that in 3 years yet for this? And I have the letter here. I have the letter that I got in 2018 for 2019, right? The other part of that is the gentleman showed up with we were notified that he was coming. They were coming around this time. So in 2018, I knew they were coming because I had a letter. At some point in time, he was going to go by my house. This time around, nobody was notified. That's that one time. And on the Dominguez property too, I saw walk on the Dominguez property as well. Whether somebody got notified, I'm not sure. I can tell you the people in my block were not notified.
I'll give you another minute.
Just through the chair, they didn't notify, but they did leave a sticky note. Because I'm on the same part of time, they did leave a sticky note.
Yep, I have a sticky note.
Yeah,
Actually, I spoke to them. Actually, I did speak to them.
Oh, you just speak to them at home, so yeah, they left a sticky note.
Yeah, I did actually speak to them, but I guess my point is that we were assessed in 2018 to 2019. now they're back, right? They're back again. And I've been more than happy to leave this with the municipal clerk. This is my, yeah.
Well, later on, I'll ask the clerk.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Council President. And the last thing I wanted just to ask was about the municipal complex on Mayhill.
Your time is up, but just.
I'm going to real quick, and you can answer it later. In this property in Mayhill, I did get a copy of the budget. I'm just wondering if somebody can show me where that is located in this budget and how it's assessed for next year in the budget. Those are my few questions.
It's probably not.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else wish to address the council?
Good evening, good afternoon. Hello. Everybody's doing well. Glad to see everybody's wearing protection. I just had a question. I didn't even know if I should bring it up at the council.
Your name and address, sir?
I'm sorry, Emil Sewell, man, 412 Manhattan, Southbrook.
You have an ordinance.
I guess this was all over Facebook about a week or so ago during that hot spell that we had, that these park, that lake, there was a tremendous fishery over there. I don't know if anybody's seen pictures of that. I want to know if anybody in either Southbrook or, I don't know, if the county looked into that problem. Does anybody from the town look at it, into whether it was an engineer, or I don't know, would that be the county park commission? Or?
Emil, I did talk to them. I don't want to take up your time, but I planned on talking about that during the comments.
Okay, cool.
So
That's
yes.
pretty much all I got to say.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
No problem. Okay. Anyone else from the audience like to address the council? Well, you had your. Those are the rules, but I would ask that I would entertain a motion to close the meeting to the public. Motion by Ms. Domingo. Second by Mr. Garrett by nose. Mask covered nose. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Accomando.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President Samuel.
Yes. Okay, council comments. I forget how we went, but we'll do it this way this time. Ms. Dominio?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just have a few things to bring up. Last week.
I think the rules are that, if you're going to talk for more than 30 seconds, you can drop your mask. So we can hear you.
Okay. With the pandemic and the senior center being closed, we tried to come up with some ideas of what to do for the seniors. So two people, one, her name is Diane Cherico, and the other is Kobe Jasinek. Both of them volunteered, came here last week. Diane did a 30-minute exercise class geared for the seniors, and it was really, really good. And Kobe, who does line dancing, usually at the senior center every week, did a beginner's line dance class. So they will be on channel 77 and 38 at 10 and 11 o'clock in the morning, and they will run every day. Just something to give them something to do since we still can't open here. The other thing we're going to do, which is another feel-good thing, but the pandemic, I think we need something to help us deal with it. Anybody, any senior who's 90 or over this year, any month, 2020, we'd like you to call the senior center and give Joe your name and address. And we do have something planned for the seniors. And of course, we can't do it together, so it's something special that we are going to put together. And the veterans, because we do have 4 World War II veterans, a Korean veteran, and we're gathering information, we have something special for them. So it's just a special program that we're putting together, and the deadline for the seniors to let us know is August 25th. and we'll give you more information as for next month. The Tri-Centennial Park, the pad is poured and the flagpole is done. We're waiting for the gazebo to come in, and they say it should be in on September 1st, thereabouts. So that park is moving along, and again, that's no cost to the taxpayer. That's money that we have received. And I think that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. We had attempted to have a townwide garage sale. Okay? And of course, because of the pandemic, we had to cancel it, but we're going to reschedule it for tentatively, hopefully, we'll have it, is October 3rd and 4th. It's a Saturday and a Sunday. And there will be more information on the township's website, and Channel 77 will be having it. There'll be no fees, but we ask that everyone, register, and this way, people can have a roadmap of who's actually going to be having, participating in the garage sale. So keeping in the feel-good vein, hopefully something to do, and while we have all this spare time, we'll get our, stuff together and put it to good use. And before I pass it on, I'd just like to mention, give a shout out to our first responders, our police, ambulance, fire department. It's been a treacherous week with the storm. And once again, thank you for your service.
David?
I just have a couple things. Good evening. The Flood Committee met on Thursday, July 30th. Members in attendance were Pete Ledico, Mayor Bob White, PPW Superintendent Bob Hickshaw, Tom Dickman, Abel Sewell, and myself. Items that we discussed were the cleaning and maintenance of our storm drains and catch basins. This is up to date. The posting of flood information on the township website. This will include the floodplain protection guidelines, and that will be up on our website very shortly. Also, the mayor will be requesting a meeting with the county parks representatives to discuss ways to alleviate flood issues for the township. Despite the virus, the committee is doing our best to address flood issues in the township. Also, I'd just like to thank our DPW and our first responders for what they did this week. They did a great job, and I just want to thank them. Thank you, Council President.
Ms. Redmond?
Not much other than thanking our DPW. We did a fantastic job. Just for example, a tree fell at the end of my block. I think it was removed within 15 minutes of falling. They had the thing removed, traffic open, and thank God nobody got hurt. So thank you to them and the rest of the first responders.
Thank you. A couple of things. Addressing Mr. Sudol's question, concern. As most people know, some don't. We had an incident at the park. Now that is a county park. The town doesn't have any jurisdiction over that park, but it's in our town, and a lot of people consider it Southbrook Park. It's obviously Peely Park, because he donated that land, but it's in our town, so it's our park, but it's run by the county. Apparently, we had a perfect storm, which resulted in a fish kill. It was a combination of the algicide, or something to kill the algae that they put in, its copper sulfite, which under certain circumstances can kill certain fish. It was extremely hot weather. We hadn't had rain for a while. There was a lack of oxygen in the lake. I think at that same time we might have had a hailstorm come in. It was all bad things that led up to a lot of fish that died. There were one variety, I don't think the carp died, there's some bass in there, but there were a lot of perch and small fish like that. There was a lot. I did walk the park, and I saw body bags, it looked like, that were just on the side of the side of the hill. And I was like, what's that? And then I got downwind and I realized what it was. It was pretty disgusting. They cleaned it up on Friday, and for some reason, I guess they weren't too smart about it, and they left it on the side of the hill in the sun, roasting, till Monday when they picked it up. I did talk to the person in charge, and he wasn't happy about that when he found out what was going on, because it was the weekend, and some underlings did it, and they didn't do what they should have done. So I don't know if some of those people might be sweeping the streets today still. I did go around, and I have gone with people from the park. I actually went there maybe 4 times. A couple of times with some residents, a couple of times with the people from the county. They did call in the person from the county mosquito commission, and they pointed out a lot of the dead trees that are in the water. They're going to get backhoes, whatever machinery they have, to pull that out. Now remember, I didn't realize there's like 7 different levels in the county to deal with the parks. They have a forestry division, a mosquito division, an operations division, engineering division, a culvert division. It's crazy. And everyone's like, that's not me, that's them. But I went around with them a couple of days. I told them, you got dead trees in the water, pull them out. They agreed that it was a mess. They're going to pull that out. There's dead trees around the park. There's no reason for them to be there. They're just waiting to fall down. And I don't know, they may have fallen down during the tropical storm, but they're going to shave those. They're going to cut down the dead trees. They're also going to trim back the living trees, so this way they're not so overgrown. And something, as we're walking around the lake, a lot of times you don't even know that there's a lake there. There are sections where you can walk, halfway around the lake. You don't even know there's a lake because it's so overgrown. So I asked them, and they didn't have a problem with it, to cut it down. Just cut it down. It's a beautiful lake. And it's, like I said, it's our lake. So we asked them to cut it down. Hopefully you can, we'll get some action on that. There's also some culverts that go into the brook that, as I pointed out, some of them seem to be filled. So they're going to bring in a different division to hopefully pull out some dirt and maybe jet them out. So this way we have a better flow when there is some rain. So hopefully we'll get progress. And they're also going to, they installed one fence and they're going to install another fence. There's an area under the parkway where it drops off. And I actually was there and talking to a friend and said, my God, if somebody steps off there, they're going to fall. And it couldn't be 10 seconds later. A little girl rode her bike, fell and rolled almost into the river. So they're putting up a fence there. And just to show that no good deed goes unpunished, when I told my friend that, he says, what are you talking about? I go down, and that's where I walk my dog down there. You can't put a fence up there. So, you can't please everyone. That's it. But we're working on that. It's not our park, but it's our park. So hopefully we have a new person in charge over there who I've known for a long time. And I actually spoke to him today, saying, I'm coming to a meeting. I need some action here. He says, with all the stuff that happened, they've got trees all over the place. He says, it may not be for a little bit. I said, what's a little bit? He says, give it a couple of weeks. So hopefully, next meeting when we come here, no one's yelling at me saying nothing got done, because then I got to go yell at them. Another thing is our paving program. We finished 2019, we're going with 2020, and the most recent one is Mayhill. I think they did a great job, a fantastic job, and they went up to the concrete over Route 80. There was anybody who traveled up Mayhill going toward the Acme would kind of bottom out and hit from Mayhill to when you go up the bridge. It was jarring. And actually, we got complaints from the people who live in the houses near there, but they could hear it all the time. Well, that got done last week, and I think they did a great job. And I'm happy that the Board of Ed worked with us, because it was it came out to $18,000 to pave the little semicircle that goes to the front of the high school. And while they were doing that, they just said as an extra work order, we went to the Board of Ed, and they agreed to pay that. It seemed kind of silly to have a brand new Mayhill and then just have a old decrepit little semicircle there. So it's all brand new. It looks great, and they did a great job. And we're hoping to have the similar results for our 2020 program. I'm just gonna, Bob, you don't have a mic, do you? Yeah, like, okay, I'm just gonna, because I forget the names of the streets that we're doing in 2020, could you just help us out with that?
Everybody hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The 5 roads part of the 2020 road program are Dana Way, Taggart Way, Colonial Ave, Woodcrest Place, and Jamro's Terrace.
In addition to that, we are going to, PSCG is going to be paving certain streets. Do you have those streets?
Right now, we have Oxford, they're going to be paved, and then we have to finalize another street because they did some work over by Dewey, Hudson, and Steinway. So we have to finalize which one they'll do out of those streets. I'm thinking Dewey, but we'll finalize that.
Okay, great. So as you can see, we're working toward getting our infrastructure done. Unfortunately, sometimes we pave and then a week later, sometimes not even. I think it was 3 days on Medley where there was a PSCG gas leak. So we paved on a Monday, and on a Wednesday they tore it up. They did actually a decent patch job. I was not happy with that, but it is what it is. In terms of, we've talked about the striping on Fairlawn Parkway. I'm happy to announce I talked to our engineer, and he's been in contact with Fairlawn, and Fairlawn is basically going to continue what we did all the way down to the Dunkin' Donuts 7-Eleven over there. Because what happens is, as they're coming in from Fairlawn, it's a wide road, and they tend to go 40 miles an hour. We're trying to quell the traffic, and sometimes it doesn't get down to the 25 that it's supposed to be. However, with that, we're hoping that it'll be a safer roadway for everyone in Fairlawn and for Saddlebrook. Our speed committee basically wrapped up this year's investigation. We have recommended a number of speed humps. One was placed on Liberty, one was placed on President Street. We have 2 on Franklin because that's been a problem area ever since I moved into town. Floral Lane, again, the criteria a lot of times is cut-through streets, streets with a lot of complaints about speeding, parks, and schools. We are going to continue this year. Last one that we anticipate would be Hillside, whether it's 1 or 2. We're going to talk about that, but we haven't decided on that. We will revisit some of the other streets. We got a lot of requests for different streets. Don't think that we abandoned you. Don't think that we think that your complaints or concerns are unfounded. It's just that sometimes, we do have limited resources, so we're trying to allocate them the best way that we can, but we will be revisiting those streets. So if you have complaints, please continue to let us know, and we will reevaluate them. And one of our members of the committee is Captain of Patrol, and he gets a lot of the complaints and knows where a lot of the speeding tickets are issued. So we'll deal with that in conjunction with our engineer and Todd, who's on the committee, and myself. I'm going to read a resolution later on. It's the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disability Act, and we'll do a resolution on that. And I think that's about it. In terms of Mr. Garcia's question, there is nothing in the budget for this year for the municipal building. We will not start paying that until 2021. So you'll see that in next year's budget, but not this year's budget. And again, one of his queries was about the reval. Maybe I could direct the question to Pete. That was the intent, was to have a rolling reevaluation, but if they were done in 2018, it should be in a 4-year cycle, my understanding of that. You want anything about that, Pete?
The only thing I'm aware of, and I believe I might have gotten the same letter Mr. Garcia got, I know they do send out the values every year, that people know what the new value based on their rolling reassessment is. So I just have to check if it's townwide. I recognize the letter. I've also received it every year. When the people know what their value is, so at that time they want to call the company, check and make sure that the information is accurate. I'll check with the assessor and get back to you.
Yeah, we will, yeah, we'll check on that, because that's the situation. It started with one townwide, and then it's supposed to be a quarter of the town every year. I don't know, maybe it was a special request, I don't know what they were doing, but we'll check it out, and we'll have an answer for you for next month. And that is all I have for comments, and we'll go into ordinances. So we have ordinance. Oh, Mayor's here. Oh, I'm sorry. I just go on a roll and then just kind of deal with it. Mayor, I apologize. Please.
I don't know if this, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mic is flickering, so.
No, you're not. You can't.
If there's something wrong with mine.
Bob, could you tell me yours?
That's the word.
But don't mind me, I'm just being careful. Okay, can you hear me? Whoa, whoa. Anyway, I want to thank, like the members here in the council did, the DPW, the police department, fire department, ambulance corps, for their response to the tropical storm. It's Isaias. I don't know if that's a male or a female's name, but whatever. It really took a toll on us. It did a job on us. We got hit pretty bad. 387 households lost power. There were 28 trees down and countless large limbs. 14 wires fell as a result, and some of them resulted in fires. The police department received 58 calls from service in that 2-hour period. We currently have many people still without power. Taggart and Avon, there's barricades at these locations because wires came down. Taggart and Avon, South Boulevard, 5th Street by the old Amloids, Wilson Street and North Midland Avenue. So all those areas are barricaded at this time. We've been in constant contact with our representative from PSE&G, and they're doing the best they can. I even reached out to Senator Langana's office because they may have a contact that's higher than we do, and you know, we expressed concern. You know, if you're without power and you know, for a long period of time, it's terrible. And we were receiving a lot of complaints, and I just want the public to know they're not falling on deaf ears. We're doing everything we can. So I hope that, you know, that helps a little bit. I just want to do a COVID-19 update. This week there was on Tuesday, I was involved in the governor's teleconference with all the local mayors in Bergen County. So I want to go over that as well as some other things. But as of today, the positive cases in Saddlebrook is 326, and the number of deaths is 19. We had a recent uptick. We were doing real well there for a while, where it was steady, and we had an uptick of about 19 cases in like a 3-week period. Just want everybody to know that the total number of these cases, it's a cumulative number and does not reflect the hundreds of residents that have already recovered from the coronavirus. I want everybody to know our recreational facilities and programs have reopened, obviously with many restrictions and requirements that include new health and education guidelines, modifications of use and schedules, and additional coaches and sanitizing. The New Jersey Education Commission has developed a list of rules and guidelines for reopening schools. 2 weeks ago, the governor announced that parents will have the option of having their children learn fully remotely. And on Friday, July the 24th, he issued state rules on virtual learning. Saddlebrook School Superintendent Danielle Shanley formed the school reopening committee. The committee worked on developing a plan that provides for the safe and efficient opening of the school year in September. I commend Superintendent Shanley and the whole committee. There was 50 individuals on the committee. All the stakeholders were involved, and I do believe they came up with something that's going to work. I also want to thank all our amazing healthcare workers, emergency responders, essential workers for all they've done on the front line of this pandemic. I also want to commend all our residents of the community for doing their part to be cautious and safe. Remember, the coronavirus is still here. It's still a risk to us, so we must continue to practice good hygiene, keeping at least 6 feet apart from one another and wearing face coverings, both indoors and outdoors as required. Now this conference call, I got a list of some things, the important things that were mentioned. Because of recent activity, house parties, especially one there was a very large party in Alpine that received a lot of comments, and it was in the newspaper and on the news. But anyway, as a result of these type of incidents, indoor gatherings are now 25% capacity, or 25 people, whichever is less, down from 100. It does not apply to religious services, weddings, funerals, political events, such as town meetings, council meetings, planning board, zoning board, etc. Outdoor is still 500, but you must wear a mask if you cannot social distance. Restaurants and dining, if they want to serve indoors, they must have 2 open walls, or else they have to use outdoor guidelines. Face coverings will be required for all students at all times in school, regardless of social distancing. As we get closer to the school year, we're going to expect more announcements to be made reference to school or education. The Department of Education will be sharing its checklist to ensure district plans, the one that, for instance, that we developed here in Saddlebrook, make sure that they follow those guidelines so that the public can check the state guidelines with the local plan. The governor is also signing an executive order allowing public employees to get medical coverage immediately upon hiring. So with the feelings with the pandemic, they want immediate coverage for all public employees. Road program. We had on the town Facebook, we posted that Mayhill Street was repaved. Actually, we did that so the public could be aware to stay away from, the road will be closed. Received an awful lot of comments about, when is my street going to be paved? And my street's terrible. I've been living in town for 40 years and my street was never done. Things of that nature. I tried to, respond as much as I could, but sometimes it's difficult on social media. So I did put out a memo, and that I put on Facebook about just explaining about our road program, and I just want to kind of go over some of the highlights. The township committed to restart an annual road resurfacing program back in 2015. Prior to that, budget constraints, really, because of budgetary constraints, we suspended it. That was prior to my administration. So for many years, I think probably maybe 15 years, prior to that, we had no programs. So we really weren't paving roads. The township wasn't anyway, but maybe public service did, and some other things were done. So we know that many roads need to be done, and we really rely on our town engineer and our DPW supervisors to recommend roads that they believe are in the worst shape. Sometimes these streets, also have utility pipes need to be replaced, or drainage improvements need to be done. So we want to do that first before we pave the road, because we don't want to do it where we have to dig up the road after it was recently repaved. We also seek grants that save taxpayers and us borrowing money, which passes on the savings to all our taxpayers. One street recently done is Mayhill Street, which we received a DOT grant of $182,653. The state has certain criteria in order to be considered for these grants, such as traffic near a school, a roadway must connect to a county road, things of that nature. We've been fortunate to have received these grants from the state. 2 years ago, Caldwell Avenue was paved right out here because of its proximity to Franklin School. Another way we save money is applying for community development program, applying for grants, which is a federally funded program administered by the county. The federal government sets criteria to determine a community's ability to apply for these grants. This is set by census information every 10 years. The current area of eligibility for grants in town is Rochelle Parkway, Les Wing Ave area, and that is why those streets recently have been repaved. The third criteria, as was mentioned by Mr. Simaluka, is public service, gas and electric. I'm sure many of you have noticed many of the streets have been paved and they've been in town doing a lot of work on their antiquated gas service, replacing it with new lines. We're having a lot of problems with water getting into the old black pipe and causing problems for homeowners. Public service is under state regulation. They're only required to pave the section where they dig, not the whole road. But we partnered with them to have them pave the entire streets instead of just a portion. And the township includes others as part of the road program. We work with them to get these roads totally paved. It just makes more sense to go curb to curb instead of doing it patchwork. So since embarking on our annual road program back in 2015, we spend $1 million a year. And we pave approximately 5 to 6 streets, depending on their length, a year. It's expensive, but we've committed to doing it. And again, residents have called and have expressed concern that their street should be paved. So I work with Bob the engineer and DPW Superintendent Hickswatt to make a criteria, like our criteria is for choosing which streets get resurfaced. I'm going to read this, and just bear with me. Streets are inspected throughout the year as time allows. Each street is rated once every 2 years at a minimum. When a citizen reports a street that needs to be resurfaced, we always go out and inspect that street to see if it is necessary. And if so, it's added to the list of streets that need to be resurfaced. Some of the worst streets are inspected yearly. Street sections found in need of resurfacing are noted. If not previously documented, they're noted and put on a list. In general, a street that requires constant maintenance to remain drivable is considered in need of resurfacing. Variables of each street section are considered, and these variables include traffic volume, pavement type, square yardage, and cost estimate. Streets with the higher traffic volume receive higher priority. Streets near schools and town bus routes are given added consideration as well. Streets in low volume residential areas that are in poor condition are evaluated to determine whether the road can suffice without resurfacing. This helps in prioritizing which streets get done first. Major arterial roads are placed on a watch list. These streets are re-inspected more frequently prior to generating a resurfacing list for the coming year. We're very careful, as was mentioned. We work with our water department and other utilities to prevent conflicting projects. For example, if the utility will be tearing up the road to do underground work, the town will hold off on resurfacing that street. So thank you for bearing with me on that. I just thought it was necessary because, again, a lot of residents are concerned and they want to know, why is one street getting done and not another one? And they pay taxes and some of the streets, I did look into some of the streets that were mentioned, and there was one in particular that was worse off than I thought. Side street, but it had a trench that went down the side of the whole street. I'm surprised, but it probably was like that for about 20 years, and I'm surprised that one didn't get paid, because it was obviously some underground utility, probably public service. I want to notify everyone that we received, I'm happy to say we received a FEMA direct assistance for firefighters for COVID-19 grant. That's a mouthful, but we're receiving a little over $8,000 for reimbursement of PPE for our fire department. I want to thank our grant writer for doing a good job in applying for the grant. Also, Congressman Pascrell for writing a letter of support for our application. The shredding event was mentioned earlier. Might have been, did we mention the shredding event? Or yes. That might have been, was that here or was that our work session? Oh, work session. So I'll mention it here. Our shredding event was scheduled, I said, for Saturday, September 19th. We're still awaiting confirmation with the shredding company to make sure that they're going to be available with COVID. I'm not sure, that they have not responded back to us, so we're waiting on that. If we do have it, we're going to have it at 55 Mayo Street, the site of our new municipal complex, not Coolidge School. The senior videos, Karen brought that up, the exercise and line dancing. The senior center has been closed, so this is nice for them to have these videos. They've been put on the town TV, town website, and Facebook. Again, I want to thank Diane Cherico and Kobe Jasinek for doing the videos along with Karen. Thank you, Karen, it was Karen's idea to do this, and I think it's a good thing. We're also working on putting our senior bus back in service just for doctor visits alone. So we're hoping that by September that'll be back in service. We're going to have to limit the amount on the bus and do all the necessary sanitizing. Tri-Centennial Park, Karen also brought that up. The gazebo will be installed on September 1st. Concrete pad was recently poured. Also, I know they put some nice Belgian block around the flagpole. And again, these funds that we're using were reserved from past budgets. Also, another project is the flagpole on the property between the entry and exit ramps for Route 80 along Saddle River Road by the intersection of Railroad Avenue. We found a spot where we're going to put a large flagpole and hopefully a street sign saying, "Welcome to Saddlebrook." We have a couple ordinances on tonight. One of them I think we pulled, but yeah, we go the one on amending vision obstructions. We're going to work on that. There's also one amending and supplementing Chapter 196, Vehicles and Traffic, stating that each driveway on Fairlawn Parkway from Fairlawn Board to Evans Place shall be considered an intersection for purposes of the Title 39 motor vehicle laws, so that the residents there can pull into their driveways and they can cross over the lines. There's no extension on tax payments. They're due August 1st with a 10-day grace period. I sent an email to Scott Luna of Bergen County Parks Commission. He's the parks manager. The scheduled meeting to discuss issues on Saddle River County Park, as Council President Simaluka said. I received an email back from Mr. Luna. He said that he's trying to set up a date with the county executive so we can sit down and address some of the more major complaints, some of the minor things that they're already addressing, like cutting back foliage, things of that nature. I want to thank Council President Simaluka and Councilman Garrett for heading the two committees that we have right now that have been working. Also, Councilman Accomando for assisting on both those committees. I just wrote a note here for Mr. Garcia about the new municipal complex, and Council President Simaluka answered it. But I also think that, I don't believe that there'll be in the budget, that goes with the debt service, right? Yes. There won't be a line item saying municipal complex. It just is included in our debt service, I believe. And appraisal systems, that's the company that does the rolling reassessment. Mr. Garcia, did you say that they didn't have an ID, the person?
They did.
Oh, okay, they did, okay, I just wanted to make sure, that's one of the big requirements. That's all I have, thank you.
I apologize, Mr. Mayor. Oversight. Now we're going to go to ordinances.
Ordinance 1685-20 is an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 196 entitled Vehicles and Traffic for a second reading.
Motion to give the second reading is Ms. Dominio, second by Mr. Accomando. Roll call.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Accomando.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President Samuel.
Yes.
An ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 196 entitled Vehicles and Traffic.
Okay, motion to open this up to the public.
Second.
Ms. Mazer and Ms. Dominio with the second. Roll call.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Accomando.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President Samuel.
Okay. Public hearing on this ordinance is open. All persons interested have the opportunity to be heard on this ordinance and this ordinance only. Seeing no one, I will entertain a motion to close to the public.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Mazer, second by Ms. Dominio. Roll call.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Accomando.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President Samuel.
Yes. Please read the resolution regarding final passage.
Be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Saddlebrook that the ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 196 entitled Vehicles and Traffic is now passed on second and final reading, and that the Township Clerk be directed to advertise said ordinance or title thereof in the press together with the notice of the date of passage of said ordinance according to law.
For a motion to approve.
Second.
So Ms. Dominio and Mr. Accomando with the second. Roll call.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Accomando.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President Samuel.
Yes, that passes unanimously. The next ordinance amending chapter 206-29, article 8, entitled digital obstruction on corner lots. We'll entertain a motion to table.
To do the public hearing and then take it out.
What's up? Yeah.
We should do the second reading.
Okay, we'll give it a second reading. Is there a motion to give it a second reading?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Accomando.
Second.
Second, any noes, Mr. Garrett. Roll call.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Accomando.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President Samuel.
Yes.
An ordinance amending Chapter 206-29, Article 8, entitled Vision Obstruction on Corner Lots. And because it's advertised for a public hearing this evening, we're going to have the public hearing.
Motion for a public hearing? Motion by Mr. Dominio, second by Mr. Garrett. Roll call.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Accomando.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President Samuel.
Yes, okay, meeting is open to the public on this ordinance and this ordinance only. Anyone who wishes to address the council or ask a question about this, please come forward. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the meeting to the public. A motion by Ms. Mazer, second by Ms. Dominio. Roll call.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Accomando.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President Samuel.
Yes, on this particular ordinance, we discussed it in closed session, and we think that we need some further input from our code enforcement officer and also our construction code official. So we're going to invite them to attend next month's meeting, the work session, to get more input on maybe changing the wording or maybe doing nothing. About the current wording. So because of that, I'm going to entertain a motion to table.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Garrett, second by Ms. Mazer. Roll call.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Accomando.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President Samuel.
Yes, and now we're going to go to,
We have the ordinance by title. It's ordinance 1687-20, An ordinance amending chapter 206 zoning, article DH, affordable housing for first reading.
Is there a motion to give it a first reading by title? Motion by Mr. Arminia,
Second.
second by Mr. Comando. Roll call.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Agamando.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President Samuka.
Yes.
Be resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Saddlebrook that an ordinance amending chapter 206 zoning, article DH, affordable housing, is now passed on first reading and being further considered for final passage at a meeting to be held on the 3rd day of September 2020 at 7 o'clock p.m. or sooner after as the matter can be reached at the municipal building, 93 Market Street, and at such time and place all persons interested be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance according to law with the notice of its introduction and passage on first reading, and of a time and place when and where said ordinance will be further considered for final passage.
Okay, motion to pass on first reading. Motion by Mr. Arminia, second by Mr. Comando. Roll call.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Agamando.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President Samuka.
Yes. That ordinance passes unanimously on first reading. The next ordinance is
1688-20, an ordinance amending chapter 206, 9.43.1, affordable housing residential district for first reading.
motion for first reading. Motion Ms. Arminia, second by Ms. Mazer. Roll call.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Agamando.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President Samuka.
Yes. Read the resolution, sir.
Be resolved that an ordinance amending chapter 206, 9.43.1, affordable housing residential, heretofore passed on first reading, be further considered for final passage at a meeting to be held on the 3rd day of September 2020 at 7 o'clock p.m. or sooner after as the meeting to be reached at the municipal building, 93 Market Street. And at such time and place, all persons interested be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance according to law, with the notice of its introduction and passage on first reading, and of the time and place when and where said ordinance will be further considered for final passage.
Motion to pass on first reading. Ms. Arminia,
Second.
second by Mr. Comando. Roll call.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Agamando.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President Samuka.
Yes, that passes unanimously. Next is going to be the consent agenda. We have a couple of things that are not going to be on the consent agenda.
Right, and we also are adding a few things to the consent agenda.
Okay.
We have the resolution for a settlement for 109 North Fifth Street versus Township of Saddlebrook, the tax appeal, and also 580 Brighton Road Associates, and tax appeals also, and we have the extension of the recycling contract with data, that might be in there. We also have the approval of a new contract for 1 year for Joseph Shemansky Incorporated of Jersey City for the recycling, which is the one bid that only bid received. And resolutions 7 and 8, and 2 resolutions by Council President Samuka and Councilman Garrett are not part of the consent agenda that we voted on separately.
So just so we're clear, the ones that are not part of the consent agenda are 7, 8, and the one from Mr. Garrett and the one from me. The other ones that you mentioned are additions to the consent agenda. Correct?
Correct. Consent agenda, all items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the Township Council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or member so requested, in which case the item or items will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. The one motion signifies adoption of all resolutions, receive and file letters, correspondence, reports, and approval of minutes and applications.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Ms. Mason.
Second.
Second by Mr. Accomando. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Arcomondo.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President, so moved.
Yes. The next resolution on the agenda is number 7, is authorized payment of bills to Mazzoni Plumbing, and I believe Ms. Dominio has to recuse herself. Can you go out and smoke a cigarette? Okay, hold your ears so you can't hear what we do. Is there a motion to authorize the payment of the Mazzoni bill? Motion by Ms. Mazer, second by Mr. Garrett. Roll call.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Arcomondo.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President, so moved.
Yes, the next one is number 8 on the agenda, authorized payment of bills. This is for Stonebrook. Ms. Mazer will have to recuse herself, and Ms. Domingo is back. Is there a motion to approve the authorization for payment of the Stonebrook bill? Motion by Mr. Accomando, second by Ms. Domingo. Roll call.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Arcomondo.
Yes.
Council President, so moved.
Yes, the next resolution, it's an add-on, and that is a resolution that is presented by Councilman Garrett. So Mr. Garrett, have you speak if you want about it, and also read it into the record.
Okay. The purpose of this resolution is to request that the federal government provide financial aid to the states and local governments, such as Saddlebrook. The resolution is as follows. Whereas the coronavirus pandemic has affected our country in ways no one could have imagined, and whereas New Jersey and its residents continue to experience a deadly impact to the extent that there probably isn't a resident who hasn't known someone close to them who's contracted this disease, and whereas the state, counties, and all 566 municipalities have spared no cost to protect the health of its citizens throughout this pandemic, and whereas some costs may be reimbursed, but the loss of revenue experienced by state, county, and local governments are not and will have an adverse impact and cause an additional tax burden on all our taxpayers, many of whom have not been able to return to the workforce due to the pandemic. Therefore, be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Saddlebrook that it is hereby strongly supports and requests that federal aid be provided to all states, counties, and municipal governments, as this is a national emergency being deeply felt by all Americans in all 50 states and U.S. territories. And be it further resolved that the Township Clerk is hereby directed to send a certified copy of this resolution to the President of the United States, Donald Trump, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, U.S. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, Senate President Steve Sweeney, Minority Leader Thomas Kean, Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin, and Minority Leader John Bramnick, and the New Jersey League of Municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Motion to approve the resolution. Motion by Ms. Domingo, second by Ms. Mazer. Roll call.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Arcomondo.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President, so moved.
Yes. Next resolution, which is an add-on. It's in regard to the Americans with Disabilities Act. As the chair of the Township's Access for All Committee, it's kind of come full circle. This was signed into, and I'll read it, signed into effect 30 years ago. It is the 30th anniversary, just passed last week. Our Township Access for All Committee attempts to try and make Saddlebrook as accessible as possible. One of the things you'll see is the stigma-free, which it's not only physical disabilities or impediments, but it's also can be mental. We know that there's depression is also an issue with a lot of people, and it's Sometimes you can see a person in a wheelchair, but a lot of times you do not know or aware that somebody is suffering from depression. We like to think of ourselves truly as a stigma-free community. We ask that anyone with an issue come forward, and you will not be shamed, you will not be judged in a negative way. That being said, I'd like to read the resolution. Whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law by President George H.W. Bush on July 26, 1990, and whereas this civil rights law afforded all citizens with disabilities certain rights against discrimination, as well as affirming the inherent dignity of every person, regardless of their disability. And whereas great strides have been made in the past 30 years since the enactment of the Americans with Disabilities Act, but more can and must be done to eliminate barriers in the workplace, public buildings, housing, etc. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Southwark that it hereby recognizes and fully supports this landmark piece of legislation that allows individuals more freedom to lead independent lives and overcome their disabilities at home, schools, public buildings, and public transportation. Entertain a motion to pass that resolution. Motion by Ms. Dominio, second by Ms. Reclamano, roll call.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Accomondo.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President Salute.
Yes. Next is old business, and I think, Ms. Dominio, we talked about it before. You had you brought some information about the busing, and the mayor talked about it. Was there anything else you wanted to add with regard to that busing issue?
Well, it was brought to my attention that our attorney is on the Bergen County Transportation.
Yeah, I work with community transportation.
And they have some additional ideas and what we can do on the bus to keep the people safe. As the mayor said, we will try to start it as soon as we can, and it will be one person at a time. So Mr. Suarez is going to get me some information on some more safety measures to use on the bus. And then we'll post it when the bus is available for everybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any old business, new business that we haven't already discussed? Mayor? Anything? I don't. So I will entertain the motion to open the meeting up to the public once again for agenda items only.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Mazer, second by Ms. Dominio, roll call.
Councilwoman Dorminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Accomondo.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President Salute.
Yes. Okay, anyone wish to address the council on agenda items and agenda items only, please address the council.
Mr. Semple, Council President. I guess just a question about tonight's first three resolutions. What's an increase in the bid threshold program? Following years 21 and 22.
Yeah, with that, it's increased to 44,000, meaning that you have to, above $44,000, you have to go out to public bid, and before, underneath that, you can just ask for three quotes. And it's gone up. They increased it. I think it was 42,000, went up to 44,000. And you need to have a qualified purchasing agent, which we do. We have Brendan Carnavale, who's our purchasing agent.
Okay, so I understand that now. The other two items on the West Wing cleanup for 25 grand and Fairlawn Parkway for almost 10 grand. You know what's on there? It's 35 grand. That's a lot of money.
Fairlawn Parkway is a minus. It's decreased.
It's a change order. That was a decrease by $10,000.
There was an increase for 10,000.
That was a decrease.
Or decrease?
Minus 10,000, 9,000.
Oh. All right, that's pretty much.
And just, in North and South West Wing, when they were doing the paving, they came up with other issues which had to be resolved before they could actually do the paving. There were some issues with regard to water mains and things like that they had to address. So unfortunately, it cost a little more than we had originally anticipated.
In the closed session tonight, when we arrived here, we weren't allowed in.
Right.
Not the work session tonight. It was closed
No,
session?
no, the work session was there, and then during the work session, at the end of the work session, we had a closed session to talk about litigation personnel.
So that started earlier, 6 or so?
No, it went as soon as we finished the regular agenda on the, talked about what we had to talk about, and then there was a motion to go into a closed session on specific litigation items, tax items, and things like that.
Okay. All right. I think that's it.
Thank you. Any other member of the public wish to address the council on agenda items?
Council President, two quick questions. Two quick questions. One was a resolution was passed this evening for affordable housing resolution. I just want to know what that is. And the second part of my question is on the bills part, the bills for Zone and Stonebrook. I do see that we out here outlined the payments made to other vendors. Why are the payment made the dollar amount for these vendors on the agenda? Just another two questions.
I'm not understanding that.
So on the agenda, on the items you have here, it indicates the dollar amount we're paying each vendor. But for 7 and 8, there's no dollar amount indicated for we're paying vendors.
Yeah, well, that's in the section that's marked for bill payments. Those other ones that have actual numbers on them, those were the change orders. In regard, what was the other one?
Affordable housing, those have to do with the settlement of the case involving the affordable housing matter that the township had back in 2015 started. So basically, the case was settled a couple of years ago, and we're following along with the dictates of the settlement. And in order to be able to do that, we have to have certain ordinances to effectuate the settlement.
For which affordable housing? The Mount Laurel? Is that Mount Laurel?
That's right, that's not lowercase, correct.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else wish to come forward on agenda items? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the meeting to the public again. Motion by Mr. Dominguez, second by Ms. Mazer, roll call.
Councilwoman D'Arminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Accomando.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.
Council President Simulowicz.
Yes. Once again, if anyone has any final words to say before we close for the month of August, do that. If not, I will entertain a motion to close the meeting. Motion to close by Ms. Mazer and second by Ms. D'Arminio. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman D'Arminio.
Yes.
Councilman Garrett.
Yes.
Councilman Accomando.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer.
Yes.